For more on that now, I want to welcome Renee Washington. She's a former All-American athlete and now a sports commentator appearing on ESPN and Fox News. So let's start off here talking, of course, about American gymnast Simone Biles, her withdrawing from competition, citing mental health. What was your first reaction when you heard about that?
I was surprised. I was devastated, but I think it reminded us that these athletes are human. You know, at the end of the day, I think we look at talents like Simone Biles and many of these Olympic stars, and we forget the fact that they're working through a lot too, between the pandemic, now being away from their families in Tokyo, in what's a bubble in Tokyo. And so this was a shock, but I honestly commend her for doing what's best for her mental health.
Yes, but is it not surprising? I mean, she's competed at this level many times. She's, considered the best in the world. She's done well in so many other competitions. What do you think could be the unusual circumstance, or is there an unusual circumstance this time around that you think could have pushed her to this point?
That's a great question, because I think that when we look at it just as the Olympics and something she's competed in many times, I mean, Simone Biles, her accomplishments speak for themselves, but when you combine and add in the other factors, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter and social justice movement, the gender equality movement, she's been at the center of it all. And I think for a 24-year-old, when you take away the talent and look at her as just a young woman, it's a lot weighing on her. And she has mentioned those demons she's battled in the past, but it seems that with everything combined, it really has just elevated that level to the point that right now she can't compete. So it's disappointing, but we'll see day by day how she's feeling if she does get better to be able to finish things out.
Now, Renee, you have competed at an elite level. What has been your experience? Is there at times just too much pressure put on athletes?
Yes, I'm no Simone Biles, but I have competed in my fair share of NCAA tournaments, been an All-American 3 times, played at a very high level, played with a number of players that are actually playing in the Olympics today. And the hardest thing is that mentality, because there is a lot of pressure. You are expected to compete at a high level every day. You're not expected to have a mistake. You're not expected to get injured, to be sick. Everybody always expects you to be on the top of your game. And I even saw it with Simone Biles in the qualifying rounds leading up to Tokyo, where she just seemed a little bit off. And I think this is just that moment with it being a unique year, 5 years since the last Olympics versus 4, that she maybe is just feeling a little bit different mentally, in a different mental state. It does require a lot of mental toughness to be able to step up the stage every day, day in and day out.
You know, we also saw a tennis phenomenon, Naomi Osaka, lose to a relatively unknown Czech player. She leaves without a medal. There have also been other top draws that have lost. Would you say that Tokyo 2020 is losing some of its luster with these athletes bowing out?
Not completely surprised. It reminds me a lot of what the NBA bubble, the WNBA bubble, and all the sports went through when they went into a quarantine bubble season, because this is a very unique year. And the same goes for the Olympics. I look at even the Spanish synchronized swimmer, Ana Carbonell, who was speaking out about not being able to bring her son with her. All athletes are working through this. And for Naomi Osaka, she's been one we saw her pull out of the French Open. We've seen her speak about her mental health before, that coming into the Olympics with all that weight on her, lighting the cauldron, being the one that's at the forefront, the face of the Olympics, representing her home country, and being expected to perform and compete and win a gold medal. I think that the pressure of it all just really built. And you saw that in her play, playing 3 back-to-back matches, that it was a lot for her physically, but also, as mentioned, mentally.
You know, we're talking about people who are leaving or, being defeated unexpectedly, but there's also a number of stars who just opted to not go to the games. I'm thinking of Canadian player Bianca Andreescu and some of the American members of the basketball team. They didn't even opt to go. What does that say about this edition of the Olympic Games?
Yeah, for as much as we're talking about Simone and Naomi, there are some of the biggest names, as you mentioned, across sports that are not even in Tokyo. And I think fact that these leagues are in a unique season, these athletes are in a unique year as is, with having played for the NBA. They just finished. We saw Devin Booker, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday leave the NBA Finals and go to Tokyo. So for all the athletes, it is definitely physically draining to have this unique season, whereas a typical Olympic year, you have time to rest, prepare, and take that time to make sure that you're as physically and mentally ready to go. So I think what we're seeing is just the culmination of what the pandemic has put us into. But I feel as though it's just exciting to have the Olympics back. For all of us, it's different, but sports have been different since 2020. So I think it's just exciting to be able to see some of the best players compete, representing their countries. It continues to go smooth sailing.
Absolutely. I mean, as much as people have been very nervous about these Olympics, it's also been, you could say, maybe some people have been looking forward to them more than ever, just because it has been a pandemic. And for so many people, it's just a joy to be able to watch such incredible athletes competing. You've been watching all along. How would you assess the success of this particular game so far?
I love it. You can watch sports all day, every day. I was watching the triathlon, swimming, gymnastics, beach volleyball, soccer. I did also watch the Canadian soccer game for women's soccer. It's just been exciting to see just sports all day, every day. The way that they have been doing a tremendous job of honoring and remembering all that we've been through, whether it's the pandemic, social justice, all that's going on in the world right now, to bring these best athletes together and to see the excitement, the raw emotion. It's fun. So for me, it's like being a kid again, watching your favorite players compete. And I am proud of the way that even the opening ceremony, which was beautiful with the drones and everything, has been going on. It's been fun to watch sports again. So I think although it's different, at least we are having the chance to watch our favorite athletes compete and compete for a chance to win the gold.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time today, Renee.
Thank you for having me.
That is Renee Washington joining us from just outside of Philadelphia.